Wow. Denver, okay, they reached, so Bo Nix.
Just over a year ago, Bo Nix leading the Broncos to the top spot in the AFC would have been unfathomable. Second round talent.
Broncos select Bo Nix.
5 years in the college game, an offensive scheme at Oregon that inflated his stats. Plenty was working against Bo Nix as a draft prospect. Then when you add in the fact that the 2024 class was historically strong at the quarterback position, there are a fair few reasons why Bo Nix wasn't a top 10 pick, let alone first overall. Now though, I think if teams could redo that year's draft, no doubt he'd be closer to the top of that order, but in this video, we're dealing with strictly what actually went down on draft night in 2024 to understand why Bo Nix wasn't the first overall pick. Now, as is the case for many players in this class, Bo Nix's collegiate career was heavily affected by COVID. You see, there had always been an air of destiny around the young quarterback out of Pinson, Alabama, and for starters, he was one of the most prolific high school athletes in the class of 2019.
It all starts with quarterback Bo Nix.
Yeah, I don't know what else you can say about the young man. Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Alabama, one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the AHSAA. In fact, Chris, he's the first quarterback, the first player ever to go over 12,000 total yards of offense. He's got nearly 3,500 yards passing this year and 48 touchdowns. He's committed to Auburn University, so he'll be playing his college football right here on this field, but he's got one more high school game tonight, and he wants to go out big.
And that's the thing too, not only did Bo Nix go and win state championships, back-to-back state championships, actually with his dad, but he further followed in his dad's footsteps, committing to Auburn. Patrick Nix, his dad, had led Auburn to an undefeated season in the 90s and was something of a program legend, and from the second Bo stepped on campus, he seemed destined to reach similar heights.
Do you think it's realistic to think that you could win the starting job as a freshman?
I think so. I think that's why everybody goes in as a young freshman.
Bo became the first true freshman to start a season opener for the Tigers since 1946 and instantly showed out.
That stadium was huge. Pretty much the whole time I was just thinking, don't mess up, don't mess up.
He looked composed far beyond his years, leading Auburn to a hard-fought win over Oregon, but more on the Ducks in just a second. At the time too, his head coach Gus Malzahn was cautiously optimistic and highlighted a trait in Nix's game that would become a costly oversight for many NFL front offices in 5 years.
He has some savviness to him, there's no doubt, and of course when the game's on the line, you got to make plays, and that's the one thing that he showed, and in all fairness, it was his first start. He went against one of the better teams in the country in this kind of environment. He did some really good things, but when the game was on the line, he found a way to win the game, and I think that was real special for his first start.
When the game was on the line, though, Bo Nix found a way to win, and for any NFL franchise, wins are the most valuable asset that they can accrue. More wins mean more chances at glory. You could argue that that's something that Nix has provided with the Broncos better than any other quarterback from this class outside of maybe Drake May or Caleb Williams right now. Like, for as predestined as Nix's ascent at Auburn seemed, it all came crashing down just as soon as it begun. In the COVID-altered 2020, he appeared to regress slightly before 2021 saw Nix struggle under the Tigers' new head coach and ultimately have his junior season cut short by injury. That's when Nix made a fateful decision which spoke volumes about the kind of competitor he was.
Auburn quarterback Bo Nix has announced that he will enter the transfer portal. Nix has been the starting quarterback at Auburn for the last 3 seasons. He earned the job as a true freshman and made 34 consecutive starts before injuring his ankle last season. Nix finishes his Auburn career as the program's 3rd passer all time with more than 7,000 yards. Oregon is where he ultimately chose to take his talents, where Nix reached entirely new levels though. His first year, he led the Pac-12 in completion percentage. His second year then, he set it at the collegiate level. The logical next step was the NFL. Yet, unlike his transition from high school to college, there was really no sense of destiny surrounding Bo Nix ahead of this draft. Instead, all of the hype was concentrated around USC's Caleb Williams. Never mind the fact that Nix had comprehensively outdueled Williams in their head-to-head battle in 2023, it was the narratives around the quarterback class that had already formed. For Bo Nix, 2 major qualities were the system player whose numbers were grossly inflated by the short pass heavy scheme in Eugene.
But when I watched the film, that was the difference between him and the guys in front of him. I felt like the guys in front of him rarely didn't take those opportunities. Now, they might not have hit all of them, but the vision part of it, the ability to be like, let it rip sometimes, that I think you have to have, for whatever reason. Bo was great at protecting the ball when he was at Oregon. And, you know, that's certainly an element of playing in the league, but I'm not sure it's going to allow him to flourish potentially like some of those other guys because of how they let it rip and have the arm talent to kind of drive the ball at almost every single level.
And now, yes, there were definitely some legit questions on how he would kind of fit into a different scheme in the NFL, but you could also argue that this was something that Bo Nix was easily going to be able to adjust to once he was in the NFL. But that's the thing too, the other major drawback was his age. Because Nix had spent 5 years in college, he would be coming into the league at 24 years old, meaning that Bo skeptics assumed that his skill set had more or less just kind of solidified. People were trying to argue that he wasn't going to be as moldable as, say, JJ McCarthy, and statistically speaking would begin to decline physically sooner rather than any other quarterback prospect in this class. But there were some also serious oversights in this regard as well, as maybe his age and experience were an advantage.
I think the age thing is overblown. I do.
Is it even a positive in your mind?
I mean, in a lot of ways it is. It's like, okay, he's mature. You know, I was dumber at 21 than I was at 24. Yeah. I mean, I did dumb shit off the field. I probably wasn't as focused, right, as the way I needed to be. I was a different guy. 24, 25, right? I don't care about doing that anymore on a Friday night. I just I'm going to sit home and watch film, or, you know, I'm going to go throw at the field and then just take it easy at home then. Like, you change.
He's a married man. He
plays a mature style of football. And, like, I'm also sick of that. Like, well, he's already maximized. Like, well, what the hell are you talking about? I saw Tom Brady be barely above average in 2011, 12, and 13, right? And he like tweaked his game, and all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, at the end of 2014, who the fuck is this guy? He's throwing lasers again.
Not only was the age concern ignoring any of the benefits of an experienced quarterback that Chris Sims just outlined, but it also overshadowed some of Nix's most compelling qualities as a player and leader. His formation as a coach's son gave him a major leg up when it came to the mental side of the game.
Growing up with Dad and being around my grandfather who coached for his whole life, and Dad growing up a coach's kid, I've learned a whole lot about the game, and so I think I'm a smarter player. It's basically 4 verticals, but we get there in a different way.
Being immersed in the game at a young age shows in Bo's football IQ and leadership.
Beyond football IQ too, Nix's vast experience across the country also made him a fantastic leader in the locker room and on the field, as his head coach at Oregon, Dan Lanning, explains how Bo Nix set the standard in Eugene.
I don't know if they see how competitive this guy is. I'm talking about, like, if you came out and watched our practices, this guy gets upset when there's an incompletion. Like, the passion that Bo has to compete, and it doesn't matter if he's playing against our guys or the other team, like, he wants to go create success and have success. But he's extremely competitive. And then, you know, I think people are getting a glimpse into what kind of person this guy is. I mean, he's a special human being from a standpoint of, you know, I feel like I got to be better when I'm around Bo, right? And like, oh man, I can't say that, Bo's here, right? Like he holds me to a higher standard. That's what kind of guy he is.
All of this is really just to say, because of lazy assumptions about his age and his role in the Ducks offense, Nix fell to the bottom of many people's quarterback rankings. He wasn't generational like Caleb Williams was, as experienced as Jaden Daniels, but hadn't shown the same ceiling in college. Meanwhile, Drake May was considered to have more upside as a Josh Allen project type quarterback, and JJ McCarthy was the youngest in the class with the best track record of winning, while Michael Penix dazzled with his rocket arm. This left Nix, a fantastic field general with underrated escapability and arm strength, as the least desirable pick of the lot. So as the pre-draft process dragged on, he eventually came to be considered a first-round caliber talent, but just barely. That's not to say nobody believed in him, it's just that Nix was generally considered at the bottom of the pack.
You take a Bo Nix, who's going to be my 6th ranked quarterback on my list, and yet he's my 26th player overall, and people are like, why don't you like Nix? I love Nix. Here's what I love about Bo Nix: his feet, his schematic acumen, his intelligence. He's off the charts as far as a leader goes. He's accurate. The ball goes to the right spot on time all the time. They were so good and so hard to stop. And it was because of Bo Nix. If he goes to the right organization, and this is why I think Denver fits him like a glove. Sean Payton fits him like a glove. I was in Sean Payton's offense. I know Bo Nix. I know how Bo Nix was taught. In fact, Will Stein, who was his offensive coordinator, he and I talked about Bo, and he just talked about how cerebral he was in nature in terms of knowing where to go with the ball, knowing how to check protection, knowing how to remike the protection so that you are protected and can get the ball down the field. This guy is NFL ready, all right? And I love his game, and I think Denver should draft him.
And that is quite the analysis from Joel Klatt, as Bo Nix eventually went to the Denver Broncos 12th overall after Williams, Daniels, May, Penix, and McCarthy were all off the board. It should have been an encouraging sign that Bill Belichick pointed to Nix's experience as a major asset for Sean Payton's offense too.
No, he protects the ball well, and again, this is another guy that's played a lot of football, you know, from Auburn to Oregon. He's had a full career up there, so you know, he's experienced and he's probably, you know, pretty close to being game ready. And, you know, he's got to be smart to handle Sean's offense. So, you know, it's what a quarterback draft this has been.
Many in the media had even assumed that Denver could trade back out of the 12th overall spot and still get him, since again, he was considered the least exciting first-round quarterback of the bunch.
And, you know, they were thinking, well, maybe they trade down and get him later, trade back into round one. They didn't want to play games there. Let's take him. Let's not screw around. Let's not lose him because we got cute. Let's just call the ball. Let's submit the pick and let's get it done.
Like, this is getting crazy because, in fact, some people even considered it was a sign of outright panic for Denver after the disastrous Russell Wilson trade.
This is also as simple as they were desperate. I mean, like we just talked about before they made the pick. What were they going to do? Roll into the season with DiNucci and Zach Wilson? I mean, they didn't have a choice.
But after Denver got their guy, Sean Payton gloated about the draft math that saw Bo Nix fall into the Broncos' laps.
We felt like the Giants were the joker team in that there were three teams at the front that needed quarterbacks, right? We all knew those three teams, Chicago, Washington, New England. And then we knew there was the second stretch of Minnesota, Denver, and the Raiders. And so, man, we kept, the Giants going to take one, you know, because that then impacted how the last three were going to be. And so when they didn't, you know, I think I said to George, I think we think Minnesota likes McCarthy. We think, we don't know this, we think the Raiders like Penix, and we like Nix. Let's get on a conference call with all of them and say, just no one spend any money. We think we know this. And then Atlanta took Penix, and then now all of a sudden, we're paying attention to the team behind us, and it got a little crazy there for a minute. But
this too should have been a warning sign to the rest of the league. When one of the greats is this giddy about a draft pick, they know they've just fleeced the entire league. And now for almost 2 seasons in the Bo Nix era in Denver, that seems to be the case. Not only was Nix one of 2 quarterbacks from the class to appear in the playoffs as a rookie, but in 2025, he has his Broncos in the fight for the AFC 1 seed with Drake May's Patriots. And look, that's not to downplay May's heroics this season, but there's a very legitimate argument to be made that Bo Nix has been the most consistent quarterback at the NFL level out of the 2024 class so far. All of those concerns about his age and limitations of his scheme were dispelled fairly quick, and now in turn, his biggest strengths as a prospect have been amplified at mile high. That football IQ, which has seen him flourish in Sean Payton's scheme, the leadership to rally Denver to the playoffs after being completely written off in the early season, and now most importantly, the clutchness to win big games and make the difference in one of the toughest divisions in football. Huge wins over the Chiefs, Eagles, and Texans prove that Nix had all of the intangibles teams look for in franchise quarterbacks, and at just 25 years old, there will be plenty more of these marquee victories to come. So to answer the question of why Bo Nix wasn't the first overall pick in the 2024 draft, he was criminally underrated. Scouts and analysts fixated on loose criticisms of his game and the context in which he produced some fantastic play in college, failing to accurately weigh Nix's strengths on the field and all of his intangibles. Nix is an exceptionally accurate thrower of the ball and has plenty of arm strength and the football IQ to run an NFL offense. His achievements in both the SEC and Pac-12 speak for themselves. The guy always knew how to win, even with the odds stacked against him. Nix wasn't always as flashy as some of the other top prospects, but now, with the better part of 2 seasons in the books, it looks like he was significantly overlooked in the 2024 draft class. And now, based on current production too, Bo Nix may as well have deserved to go first overall.